Right. It seems like we are live now. Um, yeah, so we're live. We are live. Yes, we are. Okay. In 2025, everyone and their neighbor's dog knows that you need to create content to build brand. What if I told you that by the mere fact that you're posting content, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily building brand? Now, I feel like I need to caveat that by saying that by the definition, the most popular definition that I know of branding or of what a brand is the gut feeling that other people have about you or your business. Now, by that definition, it means that what other people think about you, that's what your brand is. Now, the activities that you do or don't do kind of influence that perception that people have about you. So, by that definition, you are always building brand, whether you're aware of it or not. Now, I'm assuming that if you make the decision to build a brand, there is some intentionality behind it, right? And that's what I'm talking about here. If you want to intentionally build your brand, the fact that you're posting content doesn't necessarily mean that you're building something that you want. You might have a brand eventually, but you might not have an understanding of what that brand is about, the kind of people that are interested in it, and things like that. So the point I'm making is that there are some foundational elements that needs to be in place for you to be able to leverage content creation to build brand, and that's what I kind of want to go through in this video. We'll look at the foundational elements that are required for you to build a brand for you to intentionally build a brand, essentially. But before I go into all of that, this is my first ever live stream. From the intro, I'm sure you know that everything is a bit all over the place. I'm a one-man band right here, right now, so I'm managing the things at the back end as well as the thing on the front end. I'm talking to you guys, but I'm also managing all the settings. Now you might see me put my hand here from time to time. This is my mouse. This is where I'm controlling everything from. My laptop is just over to this side, so it might get a little bit crazy, everyone. So just bear with me. Live stream number one. Hopefully more of this to come. And finally, I hope this live stream or this video, because I intend to leave it up. I hope the video is valuable to someone someday, somewhere. And yeah. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So first of all, I'll talk about why how people typically approach content, right? Or how people typically approach building a brand. So when someone wants to build a personal brand or a company wants to build an online presence, the first thing they think about is, oh, we need to start creating content. Nothing wrong with that. But before three sentences, we're talking about content calendars and things like that. And that kind of makes me puzzled these days, because it's like, okay, we want to build an online presence. You haven't even defined what that looks like. What do you want the online presence to be? We just know that we want people to see us. So there is this overt, I guess, fascination with attention, and beyond attention, nobody cares about anything else. At least that's what it seems like to me. Everybody just wants the attention, we want the followers, we want the views, we want all of that. But I think there needs to be a bit more conversation about the job that attention is meant to do, the job that your content is meant to have, because again, that's kind of the foundational element. So you know like where I was going with that was that we go straight into content calendar without any consideration for the impact we want to have, who we want to have the impact on. So those are questions that we don't have, and those are kind of the foundational sorry, the foundational elements here. So um so we often start from what we know rather than who we want to serve. So I want to start a personal brand. I'm an accountant. Let me start creating content about accounting, not thinking about, okay, I want to impact somebody's life, maybe a junior accountant who wants to become an auditor in the future. Let's say I'm an auditor, for example. I'm at the top of my field. I could decide to start a personal brand that helps younger accountants become auditors in the next 5, 10 years, whatever it is. That's making an impact on someone as different from, you know, immediately I just start talking about auditing. And what usually happens when people approach that is, and this is something I've noticed, is you eventually find people talking to their peers. People start talking to their peers, um, and not purposefully. They just kind of land on that because they jump straight into content without considering the job that the content is meant to do. Essentially, um, I see it in the branding field a lot. So a lot of people that are into branding, I'm sorry for shaking this table, everyone, but people that are branding professionals, for example, they want to create content about branding, and then the first thing everybody thinks about is, oh, what is a brand or what is branding? I've seen that post so many places, so many versions of that, and not that there's anything wrong with that if you're doing it intentionally, but the reason why you're landing on that, and then you're probably thinking, I can't think of any other thing to talk about beyond this, is because you're thinking from the point of view of what you know and who you are, rather than trying to decide on somebody to impact and the kind of impact you want to have on them, essentially. Um, Now, in my last video, I spoke about the difference between a follower and an audience, and this is kind of like a personal definition, and I gave the definition based on what I feel the effect it has on us. So what I mean by that is, I said the definition of a follower, which is when everybody says, well, I want more followers, when businesses say, oh man, this one drives me crazy. When I've seen in several scenarios on like job boards where businesses say, like, for somebody, um for some kind of a job like social media manager or something along those lines, some of the KPIs is, okay, we need to grow our social media channels from whatever follow accounts to whatever follow account. And it's like, okay, but is there a plan in place for those followers to become business for us? Because a lot of times we want the followers because the numbers are bigger, and it seems like we're making progress. But if you really look at the actual business KPIs, which the most important one is making more money or making more profits, a lot of times people don't actually have a plan in place for converting more followers to profit, or more engagement to profit. That's one. Two, the other thing is we think, okay, so if we post every day, we post consistently, because the advice is always post consistently, post consistently. The thinking is, if we post consistently, I'm sorry, I keep coughing. The thinking is, if we post consistently, the follower count will automatically grow, and that's not necessarily that's not necessarily true. And then the third thing is, these days followers don't really matter as much. You don't need more followers to go viral. You need good content to go viral. Anyway, I kind of lost my train of thoughts there. So yeah, so I was saying the definition of follower and definition of audience. Now we have a fascination with followers. We want more followers because I feel uh at a deep level, it makes us feel kind of like celebrities. It makes us feel like, we have an allure about us, something about aura. Yeah, that's what the kids use these days. It makes you feel like you have a lot of aura, but beyond that, we don't really think about who the follower is, what we're doing for the follower. But in the case of an audience, you think about like a public speaker, or maybe like a stand-up comedian on stage, or maybe an artist performing on stage. What those people know is that they have to engage with these people, they have to deliver something for these people. These people are here with an expectation, right? Which means that I have a responsibility on delivering, or maybe over delivering on that expectation, right? So that's the difference between audience and follower. With a follower, it's almost like you assume that, these people love me no matter what I do, but with an audience, you have a responsibility to deliver on something. And this is why sometimes even like great artists or great comedians, Dave Chappelle is, some people will say, is one of the greatest comedians of all time. I've heard him do a bit about him messing up on stage. So for whatever reason. So the reason he probably messed up on stage because he didn't deliver on what the people were expecting, right? The point I'm making is that you have a responsibility to an audience, but to a follower, they just admire you, right? So it's the thinking that matters the most, right? So if you want to engage with an audience, you need to um be fascinated about them. You need to think about what you're going to deliver for them. You need to think about what they might want and make sure you deliver on that, right? But to do that, especially if you're committed to doing it at the highest level, at least getting to that point one day, it's difficult. It's very difficult. The road is mad. I'm on that road right now. This is my first live stream. I am it's not fun for me right now. And what makes it crazy is that at the beginning, especially, and I'm speaking from experience, right, what I'm experiencing right now, you put in so much work and you put in so much into your content and all of that, and you probably get nothing out of it. The engagement is very low. In my situation, so the last video, this would be my fifth video. Okay, let me tell you the story. I recently revived my YouTube channel, right? And the goal is to be as consistent as possible this time. Now, since the time I kind of revived it, this will be my fifth video. The fourth video took me about 3 or 4 weeks to make. It took me 1 week to plan. Then it took me another 3 weeks or so to record, edit, and all of that until I clicked publish, right? 3 weeks of work, and 24 hours in, I got 0 views. 48 hours in, I think I had like 30 something views. And as of now, I think the last time I looked at it, I have about 58 views. And that's my highest performing post. 3 weeks of work. And I think we're about 10 days out since I clicked publish now. And I only have about 58 views. Now, some people will look at that and be like, man, that is like heartbreaking because you put so much into it and you get nothing. Of course, one could also look at it from the point of view of this is just the beginning. Eventually the views will grow and all of that. And that's true. I haven't gotten an extra view, like I haven't gotten a view in a couple of days. Right? So but the point is you put in a lot of work and you get nothing out of it. You try some things and you mess up. Where I'm kind of messing up this stream right now. You put in a lot of it and you might not get anything back. So it's depressing. But what I committed to this time was to try and improve on something every time. So this is the first stream. I expected it to go kind of wonky, but I know that I'm going to watch this stream back and figure out what I can improve in the next stream, if that makes sense. So yeah, so it's not for the weak, as this slide says, and yeah, it's one of the most multidisciplinary things you will ever do. So, for example, the last video I did, I had to script, so that was writing. I had to do some research. I had to come up with ideas. I had to do recording. I had to edit. I had to learn about title and thumbnails. I had to, um, there's a lot of things. Then there's even soft skill side of things, like you need resilience to be able to push through this kind of quote unquote nonsense I'm going through right now. Look at this stream. I'm having to manage the back end. I'm having to keep my focus talking to you guys. I did this whole what's it called, presentation. I had to plan this whole thing. So there's a lot of things that goes into creating content. But if you are not in it, you probably won't see it, because you see a video and you're like, I can do that video, but you don't know how much work went into that video, So it's very difficult, is the point I'm making here. And this is why a lot of people quit before long, right? So you put all of this effort in and you get almost nothing for it. You get no return on investment, quote unquote. You get no engagement, and that can be quite depressing. And that's why a lot of people quit, right? And that's why I've quit several times as well. The last time I posted a video on this channel before I came back this time was last year, but before that I think was like 3 years or so ago. The first time I created a piece of content with the mindset of building an online presence was in 2017, I would say, right? But you know, I put in a lot of work at that time. A couple months in, I wasn't getting a lot of engagement. I gave up and focused on other things. Then I saw other people that started at the same time I did doing quite well because they kind of stayed on the path. And then you're like, oh my God, I should have continued back then. Let me start again. And then you start again, and then a couple months in, you get nothing, and then you quit again. So, and this is most people's story. This is most people, even I believe the top creators now, some of them start and stop until they hit something that makes them decide that, you know what, I'm just going to focus on the long term, which is kind of what happened to me. You know, is difficult, and that's why a lot of people quit before they start seeing anything. And now, and yeah, like I said, it's the ROI expectation is usually unrealistic at the beginning. So you think you're going to put in a couple of months of work and start seeing your channel blow up. It happens for some people, but those people are freaks. That's not the norm. You know, it may happen for some people, but it's not the norm at all. um so what I have had to do this time is look at things a little bit different. So I have a different relationship with my analytics now. So I said my highest performing video has 58 views, but I have only 18 subscribers. If you look at it from a ratio point of view, um 58 views is about how many 18s can you get out of 58? Let's say three. That's 54. So yeah, so 18 times 3 is 54. So let's say 3 to 1, right? So imagine I had 100 views times 3. That means that's 300. No, imagine I had 100 subscribers, that would be 300 views. Imagine I had 1,000 subscribers, that's 3,000 views. So if you look at it from that point of view, I'm having more views than my subscribers, right? And then, so the way I look at my analytics now is my analytics are basically an insight into what is working and what isn't working, rather than a definition of what post was successful, or what post wasn't, which is what a lot of people do. I will look at, oh, okay, this post got a lot of views, so it must be successful. This post got bad views, so it must be bad. But I've learned to look at it a bit differently, right? um and then the other thing is, people look at the analytics as the return on investment, but it's not. If you really think about it, everybody starts their personal brand, or businesses want to build an online presence because they want to make more money. There's money in there somewhere, let's be honest. Except for a few people who feel like they just want to give back. But a lot of the times, even those people too, there's some kind of personal gain involved there. And that's okay. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm also in this to make money, right? We're all in this to make money in some way, shape, or form. So if we need to make money in some way, shape, or form, I'll assume that making money is the ROI, getting more leads is the ROI, and all of that, not getting more views, because views inherently don't, well, on YouTube, it will make you some money. But if you ask me, I would say your YouTube revenue shouldn't be your business plan. You know, even the top Mr. Beast, who gets hundreds and hundreds of millions of views, he makes money from those views, but like his business plan is not those views. He has actual products that he's selling and stuff like that. But that's by the way. So we need to reframe this whole idea of looking at our views as the success metrics. Meanwhile, it's not, And those people who see follower count and views as the success metrics is usually a sign that you haven't really figured out the business side on the back end. A lot of people talk about the back end of your content, which is, I create content, I attract attention. What do you do with that attention? A lot of people don't know what to do with that attention. And from what I've learned, even some top creators don't even know what to do with that attention, even though they're getting millions and millions of views. But that's by the way. The point is, your ROI shouldn't be your analytics. Your analytics should be nothing more than an indication of what you can do, what needs to be done better, what you can do more of, what you should do less of, things like that. Um, Yeah, so it should be an indication that you're going in the right or wrong direction, and it should be nothing more than that. Now, having said all of that, the only way to build an audience, one, everyone says this one, you should keep showing up. But the other side of that equation is that you should keep showing up with something valuable. So now this word valuable is kind of a trigger word for me these days because everyone says post something valuable, post something valuable, but not many people really go into defining that. So I'm going to try and do a rundown from a top level. If you're an educator, don't just regurgitate something you found online. Educate people on something real, something that might help them. But surprise, surprise, how do you educate somebody on something that might help them? That means you know who you're educating, you know the problems they might have, and you know how what you're telling them might help them, right? You're giving them information that might help them solve a problem, or at least give them a better understanding of a problem they have, so that it can guide them on figuring out how to solve the problem, right? If you an entertainer, if you're an entertainer, you know, you're a comedian, you're successful if you make them laugh, you're not successful if you don't, you know, and things like that. So it's not a difficult thing. It's just deliver something that people need or want, basically, in a nutshell, right? So, but you need to do that consistently. So what that means for someone like me is that, you know, I need to do these live streams and these videos continuously over a long period of time for me to really attract the people that might need that information. I have the responsibility of making sure that um, the information I share is genuine, is real, and it will actually solve a problem. So, which is why research goes into it, which is why you know, which is actually why I decided to focus on my own personal brand as well, because I want to go through what other people are going through. I want to go through it so that when I'm advising you and I say, oh, you need to show up consistently, and the person is saying it's hard, I'll be like, yeah, it's hard because this is my own story, right? So I want to actually experience that as well. Um, and that's kind of it. So but you need to walk through all of this, um you know, putting out all of this, going through all of this work, doing all this work, putting out all of this content. And at the beginning, it's difficult because you don't get a lot of feedback from it. You don't know if it's resonating with people or not. But you need to be patient enough to walk through this BS to get to the point where you actually connect with the right audience. The audience grows over time and all of that. So you need to show up with value even when no one is listening. And then because that's just a period of time, eventually you break through all of that and get you know what you're looking for, which is more people listening, more attention, and then maybe you can then monetize that attention in the future. But the only way to stay consistent is the only way to stay consistent is to have something pulling you or something pushing you, to have something that is to have a motivating factor essentially. So but the problem is that the motivating factor for a lot of people is the analytics, right? So you're thinking about the last post I created didn't do a lot of views, so I feel sad. I don't feel like creating content again. This thing might not work for me. And then you do 5 other posts like that, and the content is still not or the content is the analytics is still not bringing numbers that you might like, you know, or there is no growth between posts, or maybe the last post you posted had 50 views and then the next post you posted had 2 views, and then you're going through all of that, and then 10 posts in, and you're like, you know what, this is not for me. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe I don't know what to do. Um, if analytics are your motivating factor, you will give up before long. That's just the truth. Um, but I have learned to kind of, to be honest, I'm also on that table. I'm not just I'm not speaking, I'm not preaching at you guys. I'm preaching for all of us. I'm speaking to myself as well. What I'm learning to do now is to recenter myself by saying this analytics. So like I said before, these analytics are nothing more than a telltale sign that my videos or my content is doing better. So one of the things that I the silver lining in my content is that since I committed to creating making something better with each video I create, and I'm seeing that my views on each video is going up, that's a telltale sign that I'm doing something right, which means that this new video kind of did better than the last one. Um, that means I'm doing something right, right? So there is that. But I also need to remind myself that, hold on, we're not doing it for the views. We're doing it because we want to impact people. We're doing it because we want to make money, and we can't make money if we don't impact people, right? So that's kind of that should be the motivating factor, not the views, right? That's the only way to stay consistent. So when you don't feel like doing it, or when the last piece of content bombed, or things like that, you don't just let that define the rest of the journey, because the journey is not to get more views. The journey is to help someone, and that content might not help someone today, might help someone in the future. So just keep making more like that, and that's the only way to stay consistent. So that leads me into how to build brand using content, and I promise it all makes sense, right? So for you to stay consistent, you have to think about the impact you want to make. For you to make that impact on someone, um, sorry, for you to stay consistent, you have to be focused on the impact you want to make, right? That should be your North Star. That should be your compass. Now, but for you to even focus on that, you need to have a clear understanding of that. Now, the impact you want to make is also tied to the person you want to make the impact on. And those are kind of the foundational things you need to do. So when I was complaining that people start talking about content calendar a bit too early, is because they haven't paid attention, or they haven't defined who they're creating the content for. Most people create content, and even me, I used to be like this too for the longest time. Most people create content based on what they know. They create content based on their own personal gain, right? Without really thinking about who they're creating the content for and what the content might do for them, right? So you need to define your audience. How do you do that? Uh, of course, you need to know the kind of person it is. Now, so not just like defining the job role or defining the demo. I don't even think demographics really do much, to be honest. I'm sure it helps in some way, but when I think about audience, I think about problems that people might have. I think about why they might want this. I think about why they might not want this. I think about lifestyle. I think about things like that, right? So you think about the person. So it helps you to paint a picture. So if you're talking about, oh, I'm reaching I'm trying to create content for, I don't know, males age 35 to 60, that doesn't say much. But if you're trying to create content for, I don't know, Christian husbands who have issues in their marriage for whatever reason, or Christian men who have issues with finances, whatever it is, that's a bit more like, that speaks to a problem a bit more. Now, that's understanding the audience. Now you need to think about the impact you want to have on them. Okay, how are we going to impact these people's life? Okay, we're going to impact them by helping them change their financial situation, by maybe posting a networking thing so that people can network and do business, whatever it is, right? So that, and what you find is that when you define who you want to impact, and you define the impact you want to have on them, now, if you're creative enough, you can think about, okay, how can we impact these people beyond content, right? So the way to impact them goes way beyond content, and it's easier to find those things when you define them clearly. Um, so those are kind of the foundational elements to creating content. If you haven't if you're not clear on the problem you're solving and who you're solving the problem for, I don't think you start talking about content formats or channels to create content on, or content cadence, how often you'll be posting and things like that. Because I think you just be going around in circles and wondering why your content is not doing well. But if you're focused on impact, then at least when your content doesn't do well, um you can ask better questions of the analytics, because okay, this is where I'm trying to go. Maybe this content doesn't is not doing well because of XYZ, right? But if you don't have that reference, then you will just be jumping around in circles, and then you will just simply be depressed when the engagement is low, and be ecstatic when the engagement is high, but you don't have enough context into those numbers, if that makes sense. um Yes, so this is what I call the mission-driven approach to content creation. That should be mission-driven, actually. This is what I call the mission-driven approach to content creation, because you have a mission to make an impact on someone. Um, and so it helps for you to have this mission defined. If you have the mission defined, then it's easier to come up with content ideas, come up with other ways to engage with the people you're trying to impact, and things of that nature. So that's kind of it. I know I waffled for a bit. I know this content, this stream rather, was a bit rough, but I think for those of you, if you're able to power through with me, I hope you found it valuable. And yeah, this was a lot for me, man. I'm going to leave it up because I want to see all these mess ups, um, and laugh at myself in the future. But yeah, we did our first stream, very much all over the place. But the most important thing for me, for anyone who cared, the most important thing for me was that this stream was done, so that I've ticked that off the box now. Now with the next one, we'll do everything we can to make sure that is a better version of this, be a bit more prepared, be a bit more organized, and all of that. But having said all that, um, yeah, I'm happy I did this live stream number one up, and more of this to come, and long may it continue. Yeah. Thanks for listening to me walk full, and